Hello, everybody. It is me, Elizabeth Jankovic, the host of the podcast, Virgo Vibes. So, I feel like it's been a while since I recorded a podcast, but I think it's just because my last podcast I spoke heavily about astrology, and it is currently April 23rd. It is Friday, April 23rd, now that I'm recording this episode, and today we are talking about how things build up as far as like artists and when you're starting out and kind of, how you can go from not really knowing anything about a craft to knowing about it. And I'm going to talk a lot about my journey. And I don't know if this can apply to other professions. I'm speaking about my experience as far as like modeling and acting and stuff, and just like how I kind of, I don't want to say like got my start because I'm still starting, but like how I did start from nothing. So I'm hoping that this podcast can help you guys out and can give some advice, maybe insight, maybe you guys learn, maybe it's entertaining, or maybe it'll help and you can apply some things to your personal career or goals or dreams or anything, because I feel like all art disciplines probably can relate, and then outside of the arts, I'm sure the same concepts are involved. You know what I mean? So, should I start with just that, or should I start with a quick life update? Okay, I think I'm going to start with a quick life update. I don't know if I actually mentioned this at all really in a podcast or anything, but I did put it in a video, which is going out next week on the 28th, or is it the 27th? The 27th is when I post, because that's a Tuesday. So in that video, I kind of mentioned briefly, and I just don't know if I've mentioned in a podcast before, but I think this podcast will actually go up before that vlog. But my little life update right now is I'm actually getting ready to pack up and move to Manhattan. Crazy. So there's this like flexible living situation for young women professionals, either interning, going to school, or working. And now that I started a new part-time job in the city, I was able to apply to that housing and I got in. And my move-in is May 1st. Guys, I'm sorry, I'm stuttering. Anyway, I've just literally like, I feel like January and February was like my slow, crazy, like down point of the year, and then March is when I started coming out of that, and I was like kind of getting to my own healthy routine and just like, being mentally okay. And then the end of March and all of April is when things were just like boom happening. Like I think I published my website in March, if I recall correctly. I think it was the end of March, and then like I had interviews and for jobs, and then like I got my job and I was able to start in April, and I've just been commuting to the city a lot, and March and April is also when I was like booking more, and I've just and all of that also relates to the subject of what we're talking about and how things build up. So when I started my little acting journey, it was kind of about middle school, because it was the end of 8th grade and we were doing like theater. We were learning Midsummer Night's Dream in English class, and kind of the final project for that class that year was to perform the scenes from A Midsummer Night's Dream. And that was my first time performing on a stage, like really learning something and doing it to an audience. Like I think before then I'd played around doing skits and like printing a scene here and there and just doing it at home, but that was the first time I did it for an audience. And I remember thinking to myself, as soon as I get to high school in the fall, I'm gonna audition for shows. So it happened to fall that the new director at the time that I entered high school primarily focused on Shakespeare for our shows and our dramas, and then the musicals of course we're singing, and I don't sing, so I didn't do that. I just did plays. So a lot of my experience in high school acting was just Shakespeare. So I in a way I feel like I was classically trained like via Shakespeare. And then when I went to college, I was like, okay, I know I want to either go to acting school or go to school in New York City and study theater, and maybe it's not an acting program necessarily, but take a couple acting classes, and then I can just be in the city for acting, which was New York City, and be able to like kind of build up from there. So a big thing for me is that the college that I went to, I was in a specialized scholar program that was for arts scholars. So you could have been any arts discipline, but this was like 35 to 40 kids in one class, one grade, like very specialized, and kind of just the top picks from the arts. So it could be writing, it could be poetry, it could be what else is there? Writing poetry, music, singing, dancing, theater, acting, photography. Like literally, there's like, when you think about arts disciplines, there's actually so many. But so I entered in with theater / acting, and then a little bit of like creative writing / poetry is also what I like kind of did, but that was more, I feel like, I don't know, that's like very much a back burner thing for me. That's like once I'm like settled and I feel like I have my own place and I have time and I have consistent like income, that's when I can have like leisure time to apply my time to poetry and writing and creative writing, because I do love it, but right now my focus is on my acting and modeling. So yeah, through that, it's kind of like you just meet people in my theater classes, in my arts classes. In that program, I met people who did film, who did photography, who did acting, and just talking to people is a huge thing. Talk to people who are doing what you're doing. Talk to people who may play a role in the field that you are trying to get into, because like talking to photographers or filmmakers or directors is still going to be a great experience, even if they're not actors themselves, because sometimes that can be even more valuable, figuring out people around you and how they view actors and how they choose actors or models and how it works. Because sometimes I find in education now, they don't really teach you how people get there and how you actually get somewhere. So that's kind of what I'm doing today, like showing you guys and talking to you guys about how I actually got to a place where I have different acting portfolios and resume and photos and a website, and get contacted and get these opportunities. So I remember meeting somebody who taught me about how they but like how they book work as an extra. And I asked, I'm the type that I will interrogate. Like if this person's a friend or an acquaintance or like they're open to questions, I ask every single little question. What's the name? How do you sign up? How do you do this? Whatever. So I learned how to sign up for my first acting company and casting company through that. And I did that, and then I booked my first gig after signing up for that. And this is like the company that you use to find the roles to become an extra on a TV show. So when I booked my first role, I was like, okay, well, like I have to talk to the people around me. Like these are extras. Like some of them, it might be their first time, just like how was mine. Like I made it known. I was like, this is my first time. And then people like tell you, people are informative to you. Okay, we had to pause. We had to pause in our little podcast because I got a phone call, and that's okay. So essentially, I was talking about when I first started being an extra, and just talking to people around you is a great resource, because you learn. Like a lot of people, when you ask questions, are willing to share, and you do have to find those people who are willing to share. And I always found those people on set. So these people shared their resources with me. They shared all of the different places that they sign up. And a lot of times it's free to sign up, and then some things are paid. And you figure out like what you're willing to invest in the beginning. Like that's a lot about, quote unquote, the title of this podcast, how things build up, right? Like how to kind of get started doing something. It's a lot about starting out with free stuff, because that's you don't want to start before you even learn paying for things, right? You don't want to start off really paying for things. At least that was my view. Like I started off really not paying for things, and then once I felt like, okay, like I've had enough experience, it's going to be worth like buying the thing now, that's what I decided to do. So again, I started my theater journey. I came to school. A friend kind of told me about a casting company. I booked my first gig. I spoke to the extras there. I found more ways to get it for free. I signed up for literally all of the free acting things I could. And then people started telling me about backstage.com, which I actually have a referral code or like a link, which is below my YouTube videos. And I'll try to remember to put it in this podcast description as well. But if not, you can head over to my YouTube and go to the description there. And if you sign up with my link, I'm pretty sure you get like 50% off or something. Anyway, or some sort of discount. So then it's like, okay, backstage, like that's a paid subscription. And that's when I was like, okay, well, I am going to, booking one extra gig pays for a full year of backstage pretty much. So then I got backstage, and then it's like you have to start with your portfolio. Like you have to put pictures of yourself. You have to list your credits. So it's like at that time I did high school, so I could plug that in. If you don't have any, experience, all you got to write is your name, your contact information, your statistics. You would write where you're going to school, or if you've ever taken any sort of theater class before, you write that in there. If you have no experience, okay, you can't really make a reel yet, but you can leave a template and wait until it gets filled. So, talk to your film friends, talk to anybody making anything. A lot of the times actors end up making things themselves in the beginning. So my first reel, your reel is like your video footage, like a 2 to 3 minute video, like broken up clips of your acting. So mine in the beginning was like scenes from class that got recorded, and then it was also just a monologue. I picked a monologue and I performed to the camera. That was theater. I don't even have a monologue in my reel right now because I do film, but that's how I started off. And another thing was free Facebook groups for castings, Facebook groups for modeling. And I was on an extra set one day, and I was like sitting next to an extra, and we had some like downtime, so we were just talking, and I was like, I keep seeing this thing on Facebook, and it's for this like makeup academy in the city, and they always ask for models for the students who are learning how to do makeup to practice makeup on the students. So you can just volunteer as like a model, and you don't have to be a professional model. It's like if you have a face, they'll do your makeup. So I was like, I've always wanted to do it, but I'm not sure. And she was like, just do it. And I was like, I guess so. So I just like submitted, and then I ended up doing it. And I did it a few times, and I got really cool like beauty editorial shots. And depending on the student, depending on the makeup look, you either will like them or you won't. Like the photographer, editor, everything, like all of that's out of your control. You just have to do the posing and whatever. So that's actually how I got my first headshot, like a really high quality picture of me, my headshot, which is pretty old and I do need to update it. That's how I got my first headshot. So that's like how it built up. Like that volunteer modeling led to my headshot, which I then was able to put in my backstage, portfolio. Or you print your headshot and you print your resume, and like I go out to auditions with that. Back when things were in person and you would like give stuff, now everything's digital. But it's like that headshot, as soon as I got that headshot, I ended up booking more gigs because, she has a professional headshot. Like we know what she looks like. And then like it helped me start getting booked way more, just having a nice headshot. Like I swear by that, honestly. I do need to get more. That's actually how I got like my first student film at NYU. They didn't even audition for me. They literally were like, we're booking based off of like your profile. All I really had on my profile at the time was that headshot. And so if this isn't inspiring you, like I'm just going to keep going and sharing my other stuff. But like literally they were like, yeah, we want you for this role. I ended up doing that. Boom. That's the first video clip that's in my reel right now. And then you just build up from there. I wrote like the classes I took at my college, the high school stuff I did. I wrote any little film I did. The volunteer makeup modeling, that's on my resume. That's on my modeling resume. So it's kind of like finessing, right? Too, because it's like, okay, so I wrote down like learning and Googling and like finessing. So, you want to Google like things like, I had actors tell me what they use to book extra gigs, or you can just Google it. You can Google casting companies. You can Google like how to start acting. And like there are so many articles online that give you tips. How to start modeling. You really just have to look it up. And like the more articles you read, usually what I do is like I see the similarities. Like, this article said this article said this too. So that means like that's definitely a surefire way to get things going. If you have an iPhone, which most people do, or any sort of Apple product, it has iMovie, and iMovie is what you can use to edit like anything. So honestly, I highly recommend getting an Apple product. If you don't have an Apple phone, if you don't have an iPhone, get like an iPod and an iTouch and iPad. Like you need something, honestly, and like just find something that's cheap. Like literally, as long as it has iMovie or I AirDrop, like that's to me, like it's impossible to do shit with a Windows if you're an actor. That's how I feel. Yeah, that's my little tea. So like finessing, editing the videos, editing something together, making your own like scene, doing a scene with a friend, doing a scene where you have somebody read for you. A lot of times audition tapes are a scene and you get to read, and then you have a reader off screen and you act with the reader. That literally pick a few scenes from shows, pick a monologue or two, cut that together. That's your reel. That's your intro reel. If you have no credits, you can even write like a short description. Instead of it being like a resume, you can just call it like something else, maybe like cover letter. And then it's your name, your stats, You could do it in the top and then a description about yourself if you're just starting. Sign up for the free things, don't invest money where you don't have to. And then I started booking things. I started putting more things on my, audio reel even, and my regular acting reel, and just connections. Like my first audio reel was an NYU film. So I was able to go to NYU into a professional sound booth, and I got really good audio quality for like 2 different characters. I played 2 different characters in the same story, which it shows range, and that's really good. And then that became part of my audio reel. And then, at my school, if you go to college or something, you can usually go rent out equipment from the film department and record stuff. Just record an example of like an accent or a cartoon or an impression, and like use these audio things and edit those, and like just iMovie's how I literally edit everything, even audio, and just using the resources around you. Like if a friend has a microphone or a camera, like it's really about this finessing, all right? It's about the finessing. Google, go on Pinterest, save articles, like whatever, save a bunch of links, and yeah. So that's how I wound up today. Me, and in short, that is how I wound up today with a website, www.elizabethchinkoff.com, with all of my work. But yeah, that's just like a little bit about how things can build up, Facebook groups, using your resources. You have to, I know it sucks, but it's like you have to start somewhere. Like that fear, honestly, I read this in a book one time, like fear when you start is really just fear of failure. And like, it doesn't matter. If something doesn't work out perfectly, you learn from it and you move on and you do better the next time. So it's like, you just have to take that leap of faith and do it. Like now I literally have a freaking $800 camera, which I still have to start using to record my YouTube videos. I have a professional Blue Yeti microphone that I'm doing to record my podcasts. Like, how the heck did I start a podcast? I literally just like listened to people around me who said that Anchor was good, and then I Googled it and I learned it, and I was like, let me just try and start and see what happens. And then it just like, you learn as you go. A lot of acting, and I feel like even YouTube and social media is like learning as you go. Like from people who are doing it, asking questions, Googling, and then honestly the hands-on experience of learning. So that's kind of how things build up, a little bit of acting stuff. And of course, what did I write? Anything else that I missed? Yeah, you just start somewhere. I feel like it's learning, asking questions. Oops, audio. Learning, asking questions, and then creating your own stuff, putting stuff together, making little profiles, and then you start booking stuff, and then that becomes your new reel. Whether it's voice acting, modeling, acting, theater, whatever. That is what I'm doing right now. I also wanted to include in this podcast a few other things from this ebook I read. So I read this ebook called Show Your Work. So I used to actually do book reviews on my channel, and I was debating if I should do this as a sit-down book review or if I should just include it in a podcast. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it in a podcast. So this author, his name is, I think, what's his name? Okay, let me quickly go to my little ebook. That's another thing, by the way. If you are trying to read things and learn knowledge, sign up for the local libraries around you and then get their ebook apps, because it's the easiest way. Okay, this book was by Austin Kleon. I actually read a previous book called Steal Like an Artist by him. This was called Show Your Work, and this is what we're going to talk about. Show your work. The general concept about it is like, if you are trying to be an artist or trying to get somewhere in like the creative field, show the behind the scenes. And if you guys are subscribed to my YouTube channel, I have started showing vlogs where like I get ready for a photo shoot, or I get ready for a film shoot, or I'm showing a time lapse of me making my podcast, or me filming self-tapes. I've been showing a lot of that kind of behind the scenes recently, and like even right now, explaining how I got my start. This book tells you that if you're pursuing anything, if you're a writer, if you're whatever, then like this is, like, you should show it. You should show it. Like, and so for me, YouTube, perfect place to do it. He obviously is a little older, so he talks about like blogging, and like maybe you're just writing, oh, today I did this, like literally blogging as far as like you're kind of doing what you like the basic old form of blogging, if you know what I mean. So again, a lot of the stuff is from him, or it's quotes by other people. So one of the first pages, he says, before we're ready to take the leap of sharing our own work with the world, we can share our tastes in the work of others. So if you don't have work yet, right? He starts from number one. Oh, like, well, where do you get your inspiration? Like what do you like? And just like, what are you consuming? What media, what movies, right? Like, what are you pinning? So if you don't even have work to share yet, you can start just sharing what you consume. Instead of just showing the end product, you might as well show the process. He also says you don't have to be a genius. You don't have to know everything and be perfect. One of the big things I liked about what he said in the book was like, don't say I'm an aspiring, which I used to say, I'm an aspiring actress and model. You'll see. I think some of my YouTube videos are still titled that. He was like, you have a camera? You take photos? You're a photographer. I act. I do. I'm an actress. I'm a model, right? Like, to me, I always try to be like, well, like, if I'm not getting paid for everything, like, that I do, is it really, like, is it just a hobby? But it's like, I have to just establish it. And that also goes back to positive affirmations, you know? I am this. I am a model. So, yeah. Basically, he says forums, people talk about what they care about, support each other, copy from each other, steal from each other, contribute. These are just like, I know they're going to sound like a ramble, but I would recommend reading the book. I'm just sharing some highlights. There's a gap between doing nothing and doing something. So like, if you want to do, like, it's literally just doing it. Like, how is it like starting? I know it's scary to start, but you really just have to start. When you show your work too, like showing the work, as he said before, you're going to attract the people who are interested in that. And you don't have to be shy about it. The people who love the same things will find you. Think about what you want to learn and make a commitment to learning it in front of others. Talk about things you love. Your voice will follow. If you want people to know about what you do and the things you care about, you have to share. So for me, I started doing that more with my YouTube, like showing behind the scenes. I was actually starting to do that before I even saw this part in the book. And I was just like, yeah, I guess you're right. Like, showing that behind the scenes is cool. Talking about it is cool. Most people, like, I like learning the behind the scenes of things. So I think it's cool. I should practice that myself. Like, I should share the behind the scenes on my end too. Finding time. You find time. Yeah. So if you're like doing a full-time job, right? Or like you're like, I want to start a project, but I don't know how. Literally do it during your commute, your lunch break, the few hours after your kids go to bed. He's recommending like that. Like, find the time to do things. Like, really just find it. Like, stop making excuses, just go. So I would say like reading that book is great because he talks a lot about getting started, which obviously the first half of this podcast was about getting started and how I got started, especially in film and acting and modeling as well. Like, as far as modeling, I don't think I really touched on this as much. It was the makeup that I started in, the makeup modeling. I also did like a volunteer thing for like clothes. Like, that was the first time I modeled like clothes. And then I met friends who have done professional shoots with photographers, and I was able to like model with them. And then I have a friend from like an old job I had. She takes photos, she does photography. So I always ask my photography friends like, oh, let's do a shoot sometime. You literally like, you learn the most with people you're comfortable with. I say start there for modeling, and you can also use that, and the best photos from that, you can like curate them and put them together. Like, I used to have VSCO as my modeling portfolio, and I knew after a long time VSCO was not a good thing to do for my modeling portfolio. So now it's all on a website. I literally have modeling portfolio section of my website, and that's where everything is. And it's just like doing it, going out and doing it. And that's how you make stuff. So I also would recommend reading books like this, like How to Get Started as an Artist, or like biographies, you know. Look up your favorite famous, whatever field you're in or trying to get into. Look up the people you like in that field and like learn about their story. Read interviews by them. Read their biographies. Read their autobiography. Anything that they have, memoirs. That's a great way to learn kind of where people came from, because it's inspiring. Surround yourself with what inspires you to keep you going. Do your affirmations. Write down your goals. Look at your goals every week. And know that it's possible to start from nothing and with no money, and eventually building from there. It's really, you just have to it does take time, it does take energy, it does take learning, it does take investing, like physically, but eventually money, you will put money in. Eventually the goal is to get the money out, and like it's worth it and everything. So I just wanted to share a little bit of that. Again, my life update, as I said in the beginning, is I am literally moving to Manhattan next month. I found a job that works with my schedule, that works good with an actor's schedule, and I will be able to book way more things, collaborate more with photographers, contact photographers, shoot, build more things, submit to model. The eventual goal is book things, submit to modeling agencies, and get signed with a modeling agency. And the other goal is to book shows to the point where I get some sort of supporting role or lead role or principal role or whatever in an actual like TV series or movie. You know, like that's the goal, right? That's the goal, overarching goal. And right now it's like starting with the projects, small projects, school projects, modeling for fun, whatever. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe I'll do like an actual YouTube video on all of this stuff, but I just wanted to share how things built up for me to where they are now. And this book as a resource, Show Your Work, giving artists tips to start, like how to start from nothing, basically. What I said for me, and then things that this book shared, which goes more into like business stuff too, like the business part of you as a brand and stuff like that. I feel like it talks about that for sure, and just like an online presence and stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. It's a little all over the place. There's some editing in here because I just like rambled and was confused and there were pauses, but I hope you guys enjoyed nonetheless. I hope you guys enjoy the video format. Again, I had to pull it out for this one. Sun is going down, so I'm quickly trying to wrap it up. And yeah, let me know what other types of things you want to hear. I think, next month it's going to be tour season. Well, we're in tour season now, aren't we? Oh my God. Let me ask. Hey Siri, when did tour season start?
Here's what I found from
April
astrology.com.
20th.
In the Western tropical
Oh yeah, so we're in tour season now. Totally did not really mention that. We're in tour season now. I spoke about that in my last podcast, and in my next podcast I will probably talk about my tour season and like also my life post move, because the next podcast will be I will have moved, but I actually am still splitting my time between Westchester and Manhattan as I did in the fall. If you guys were around on my channel in the fall, I split my time between Manhattan and Westchester. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Subscribe if you're on Apple Podcasts, follow if you're on Spotify, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're on YouTube, check out my Instagram at elizabeth.j. You can also check out my work on my website, and all of my Linktree stuff is connected, so you can just figure out everything I do from there. Also, I would love if you guys got more into my Instagram, because I'm trying to get more into my Instagram and just cute stuff, cuteness. I also guys, I really want to start a vegan food Instagram, just food pretty much. And I have my Tumblr, so it's kind of going to be not transferring, but having an Instagram version of that. So it's going to be great, and it's going to be all my originals instead of reblogs. It's only obviously my food, and it's just going to be really exciting. And that's a project that hopefully I get started in Taurus season, because Taurus season, getting shit done. Okay, I love you all so much. Subscribe. Please subscribe. I'm really working on my socials here, and I really want the support. I would love it. Okay, I've been rambling. Love you guys. Hope this was, semi understandable, entertaining, informative, coherent. And I will talk to you guys in my next podcast, or see you guys in my next video. This is Elizabeth Jankovic, the host of Virgo Vibes, signing off.